Hey everybody, Mungo Dark Matter here, and today I thought I'd do a quick video on the quickest way to figure out which computer is the fastest computer for your money if you're buying a new computer. So you're at the computer store and you're going to buy a new computer, and you've limited it down between 2 or 3 different computers. They both have the same amount of memory, they both have the same amount of storage, and they're pretty much equivalent except for the computer chip, or the CPU, Central Processing Unit. Now, the Central Processing Unit, or the CPU, is what does most of the calculations on a computer, unless you're doing gaming or you're doing 3D graphics, in which case the graphics card has something called the GPU, which is the Graphics Processing Unit, and that does most of the graphics processing on 3D graphic type stuff and programs that are written to use that. Not all programs are necessarily written to use the GPU. Particular older games and older other programs may not be optimized for a GPU, so it may or may not affect the programs you're running. The CPU will affect most programs in some way. So the easiest way to tell how fast a machine is, just basically, is to look at the CPU. Now, the CPU chip, it's hard to look at a chip and know how fast it's going, because you can't go by the clock speed anymore, because there are different factors in the chip that make it faster or slower. You can't even go by the first numbers of the chip. Like, for instance, on Intel, you have i3s, i5s, i7s. And although an i7 has different and more capabilities than, say, an i5, that doesn't always factor into how fast the machine is. You have different generations of i5s and i7s, like you have Generation 8 and Generation 9. So Generation 9 is probably going to be faster and better than a Generation 8. You know that. But still, you need to look at the speed factors. So the best way to find out which chip performs faster is to look at a benchmark. Geekbench.com is a great site to go to look at for benchmarks. You can go to a number of sites. You can Google benchmark sites for CPUs. Geekbench actually ranks them all with a number. So you might have one that's ranked it with a number or benchmark number of 800 and one that's ranked with 1200. 1200 would be much faster than the one that was 800. It also orders them by their benchmarks for you. So if you have 2 chips, you can look them up on this website and find out which one comparatively runs faster than the other. If the numbers aren't too far off, you're not really getting that much of a performance benefit, so it may not be cost effective to go up. If it's just a few dollars difference, then you may want to go up a little bit. If there's a big difference in it, there's more likely to be a benefit to going with the chip with the higher benchmark. So the way you look things up on the benchmark sites is by a 4-digit number, which is sometimes followed by a letter or 2 letters, depending on the manufacturer. So both AMD and Intel, after you see i3 or after you see i5 or after you see Ryzen 5, there'll be a 4-digit number after that, and sometimes there's a letter. If there's a letter after it, be sure to include the letter, or if there's 2 letters, include those 2 letters, because you might have 2 chips. One might not have a letter, one might have a letter, and that can make a big difference. Sometimes the letter indicates it's a faster chip, sometimes the letter indicates it's a slower chip. So sometimes a chip that doesn't have a letter might be faster than one that has a letter, or vice versa. So you need to make sure you put the whole number in there, and then get your benchmark for each chip, and you'll know relatively how fast they are to each other. So that's the first thing that you want to do to factor in how fast a machine is overall. Now, there are other things in the machine that can speed it up, like the speed of the memory, the speed of the motherboard, and factors on the motherboard can change how fast those chips are running. So if you had the same chip in a different motherboard, one might run faster than the other. But we don't want to get into that complexity. Now, you could go and get a benchmark for each machine that would tell you the actual and absolute speed or relative speed between the two machines. But that's a little bit hard nowadays because there's so many different models of machines and so many different model numbers that you're probably not going to be able to find a benchmark on the machine itself. The other thing you want to look at is the graphics card in it. If you're gaming or you're doing 3D graphics, the graphics card is going to make a difference. So if you pick the fastest chip, then say both machines have the same chip, those are both equal, look at the graphics card, and you can actually Google benchmarks and reviews for graphics cards to see which one is ranked higher over the other one, to see which one performs better. So that's what I would do as far as looking at those. These are really simple methods to quickly figure out which machine may be faster. There are other factors that may fall into place and that might bring one up slightly more or less, but at least this kind of makes it a little more simplistic to figure out which machine you're going to go with. Now, if you have a machine and you find out the CPU chip is faster on one, but the graphics card with the slower chip is better, if you're gaming and you're doing 3D graphics, the GPU might and the graphics card might be more important to you, so you might weigh that a little heavier on that. Having also a graphics card with more memory, just like a computer with more memory on it, is going to help it. But if if one graphics card has a much slower GPU on it or doesn't perform as well, that added memory may not make that much difference. So those are things to look at. I'm Mungo Dark Matter, and this has been Dark Matters. And whatever you do, enjoy the day. And I will see you next time.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.